All right, so we're live, and this is the third episode of SO Rev. We've got for you here today a conversation about contact. What is contact? Well, that is after there's disclosure, we have some version of open contact. A lot of this stuff is hypothetical, but we've got the man, the myth, the legend himself, Stephen Bassett. I call him El Jefe Bassetto.
Really?
And
That sounds made up, but go ahead.
no, it's not at all, man. I've been calling you that for years. But
Okay.
basically, he's going to talk to us about disclosure, but then we're going to expand on that and think about all the other things that could possibly come after disclosure and what it means for mankind, what it means to us as a species. And we will explore that through some mixed media. We're going to show you some clips of some famous contact related media, films. The films that we're discussing today, a lot of them are available on Amazon Prime for rent or purchase. And they're also available probably on Netflix, depending on which area you're in. The films we're discussing are The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951, and 2008, because they're a little bit different.
My favorite.
Okay. And then we're discussing Arrival with Jeremy Renner and Amy Adams. We're also discussing, very briefly, Independence Day. Not my favorite film.
This is your pick. It was yours.
But not as good as Independence Day Resurgence. That was
that one. No, that one.
Yeah, that was.
No,
that
Resurgence. He's talking about Resurgence. He wants to do the second
one. Is the best. Absolutely the best.
I'm talking about Resurgence. The second one's horrible. Anyway, so, and then
they're the same one. The second one and Resurgence are the same movie.
They are. It's just a totally like sad attempt to ask for more dollars at the box office. But
there you go.
The last one we're going to talk about is Star Trek First Contact. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
You know, Bassett has been prominently featured on a brand new Netflix show. We were speaking to Netflix before, that is called Top Secret UFO Projects Declassified. And I watched a bit of it last night. You know, it's a lot of stuff that we probably already know about, but I think it's very important for the masses, a lot of Netflixers that are not exposed to a lot of the history of these UFO events and the credibility behind them. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited that Stephen, you've been in many of my documentaries, and you're a fan favorite, man. You're a good, articulate, and passionate guy on this subject, an activist, and I really appreciate you. So let's talk, before we get into contact, let's talk about what's going on with disclosure. What was the sort of last little nugget that came out of the media to the people?
After the public report dropped from the DOD O&I on June 25, which was not particularly spectacular, but didn't expect it to be. They don't want to give out public information, so they just put out something to keep people happy. The news cycle on that sort of stopped, and it really dropped off. Very little news, some, but not the odd stories, but a fraction of what we were getting. Because not long after that 2025 drop, the big news about COVID-19 started hitting, and the variant, and the numbers went up. So the disclosure process and the government action is off the table for now. And that's okay. There's also 3 huge bills that the Congress is having to take up now. And when the Congress takes something up now, it's a big deal because normally it can't do anything. So not much has happened. If I were to open my articles, I'd probably find something. There's been a couple of sightings, but nothing major. Now, that could change at any time. Where we are now is the 4 key committees in Congress, House and Senate, have had a 400-page report. By the way, according to Lou Elizondo, who saw the report, it was not 17 pages. It wasn't 73 pages. It was 400 pages, which sounds appropriate. There's no reason for him to lie about that. And he actually saw it. He didn't copy it and hand it out because, well, it was a classified report. They've had for 20-some days. So that's a lot. They're reviewing that. Expect something to happen soon.
So everybody was expecting 400 pages on June 25th, right?
Yeah.
But
No. Well, whatever they were expecting in the public report, it was disappointing. 400-page classified report, which was delivered on the 16th of June, early. That's what's important, not the public report. Forget the public report. So one member of one of the committees, actually a subcommittee chair, Andre Dawson of Indiana, he has said we're going to have hearings. Okay, great. But he's a subcommittee chair. So that doesn't mean that much. The next thing that's going to happen is a major committee chair or ranking member is going to say they're going to hold hearings. That's the next thing that will happen, by and large. Will they wait 90 more days for this, quote, follow-up report that the DOD, they don't have to wait 90 days, and they probably shouldn't. So that's what to expect. However, thanks to, well, I don't want to go there. Let's just say that the pandemic is
go there. Go there, bro.
No, I can't go there. The pandemic's not going well for us, all right? And as a result, I could see things getting so bad that bringing up hearings on the ET issue is simply going to be put off. You're not going to be able to do it. You can't hold hearings on this on Zoom. You got to have it in person. The witnesses have got to be in Washington. Would be nice to have an audience. If things get much worse, that cannot happen, and so nobody's going to call for hearings. So right now, the timing of the disclosure process is in the hands of the American people and how they handle the recent surge in infections and deaths. We'll see how it goes. It's certainly out of my control.
So let me just ask you something. I mean, you said that Lou Elizondo saw 400 pages.
Yes.
And, we got 18.
No, we got 9.
9.
Yeah.
Sorry, we got 9. We got half
Only
of
6.
18.
Only 6 were substantive. 2 appendices and a cover page.
Yeah,
we got
2 were
6 pages. We got very little, almost nothing.
Yeah. So
Mice nuts.
why are we getting mice nuts? Why are we getting those dropped on our chin? Like, is there any kind of way that we can get more out of the 400 pages that apparently Lou Elizondo, those sound like big nuts.
Oh yeah, sure. Look, the Pentagon did not want to release anything publicly. It's not their job to release public information about this issue. Their job is to defend us and classify stuff in order to defend us. But Rubio, for political reasons, I think, threw public report in there. Why? Because by doing that, he guaranteed a huge amount of news coverage. You give the press a date when the government has to deliver a report, you're guaranteeing coverage, and we got tons of it all the way leading up to 25. So, but the Pentagon didn't want to do that. They're happy to give the classified material to the Congress. They feel that is their job, and let the Congress decide what to do with it. And so he kind of threw the DOD a curveball, and the way they handle it was, okay, we'll give the classified report early. They'll have lots of time to review it without press breathing down their neck. And then all the focus will be on the public report, and we're going to put that out. There's not going to be much in it. And people will complain, but so what? What matters is the classified report. If we're expecting the DOD to start dumping out massive analyses of this issue to us, we're living in a dream world. The Congress will do that, either formally or by leaking it, which the Pentagon, I'm sure, expects to happen and probably welcomes. Because if the leak comes out of Congress and not the DOD, they're perfectly happy with that. So It's all well. Everything's good. And we're ready to go, except the pandemic is raging, okay? And by that I mean many are going to die. That's not good. That's bad for the government, bad for the American people.
All right, let's pretend that's not even happening.
Yeah, it's not
Let's not talk.
happening.
Let's not talk about it because I don't
Okay.
want to like get my
But it affects
channel banned or
it
something.
affects
But
this work. It affects the
Speaking
process.
of the day the Earth stood still,
Yes.
I'm Brandon Thomas, by the way. I run a show called Expanding Reality. Thanks for introducing me, Darcy. Good man. Bassett, good to see you again, brother. It's always
Yeah.
good
I'm
to see you, man.
sorry, man.
So
Who are you?
we're
Where
working
did
out
you
the
come
kinks.
from?
It's our 3rd episode. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Welcome everybody. You can find us on YouTube, of course. Please like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Write us in at media@occult journeys for movie suggestions. And if you want to tell Darcy how good he looks with that new light that he's got going there, it looks good, dude. There it
Is
is.
that one of the circular lights? One of those?
You rocking a ring
Yeah.
light?
Yeah,
Is it
it's a
a
little ring light.
Okay.
Okay.
All
I
right,
don't have
well,
a ring light.
Got
I
it
need to
at
get one.
Ross for less, I think. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
For
Ross for less. Did you
Yeah.
say the name of the store and part of its slogan?
For less.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a discount ring. It's a
Yeah.
discount ring.
Like
So-
I'm going down to McDonald's. I'm loving it. You know.
Yeah.
So you
McDonald's-
describe
How
places
bad,
you're
I
how
going.
bad
liked
is
it.
that ring? I'll tell you how bad. His beard is actually blonde. That's how bad that ring
Right.
is.
Yeah. It's a good.
$9.95.
My
But,
beard is
but he got it for less, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So, Darcy, talk about the first movie, man. Where are we jumping off at? Are we doing the day
All
the Earth
right.
stood still? Let's
So-
get into it, brother.
You know, Stephen mentioned just a little bit earlier that, you know, the government, it's not the government that controls this issue, it's really the Pentagon, and the Pentagon doesn't care about, you know, releasing classified information to the public. So I just want to, before we go into this contact stuff, because we will touch on that, it's partly a theme to some of the content we're going to be discussing. Do you think that it's justified that the Pentagon shouldn't release much of this declassified or classified material? Otherwise, sorry.
Well, first of all, if it's classified, they can't release it. That's the law. Okay,
Yeah,
so
but
we're going to break the law.
I'm
Secondly-
saying the actual material that's in it. Do you think they should declassify it and they should actually allow us to know, you know, the goods?
The Congress, it's Congress's job to decide about that, not the Pentagon's. Actually, it's also the president. In other words, they're doing their job according to the rules. Now, are they going to bend the rules in order to get stuff to us? I think they may have a little bit with respect to Lou Elizondo and the tapes, the gun camera clips, but no. Look, everything is going just fine. We've got the classified report. Now Congress can take action. The DOD's off the hook. The DOD has also got themselves off the hook by saying they're going to deliver even more in 90 days, which means that Congress, for God's sakes, do something, because we don't want to deliver more in 90 days. So we're fine. It's all good. No problem.
But isn't it like commonly known in the ufology research field that, you know, the president doesn't actually know half of this stuff. He's just read into it. So why would he be an important person on this subject? You know,
Well,
like,
he's an important person because by law he can declassify anything he wants. He doesn't have to know anything about it. He can say declassify that. But again, the president's not going to do that. That's obvious. That's not constructive right now. What has to happen is that the Congress reviews the classified report, decides that the material in it certainly justifies hearings, and then arranges for military witnesses to come in and start testifying to aspects of the report based on questioning. Now, the questioning will be such that they'll ask questions at open hearing relative to the report, but they won't violate the classification status, and neither will the witnesses. The witnesses will say, I can't answer that because that's classified. I'll do it in closed session. And so we'll kind of go back and forth. And that's the way it's supposed to happen. When there has been sufficient testimony that is very compelling that what we have here is an extraterrestrial and otherworldly phenomena, then the president can step in a safe political way and end the truth embargo. That's the way it needs to play out. That's where it's heading right now, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Someone would say, well, we know there's an ET presence already. Why don't they just do it? Well, that's not the way the real world works. There are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of people's careers on the line. There are agencies, reputations, and so forth. And so this finally needs to be conducted in an appropriate way. And the fact that it's 75, not 75, maybe 30 some years late, doesn't mean let's just cut corners. So they're following the rules. Rubio started the ball. The Pentagon has finally delivered. The key members have got a lot of classified material to make a decision about. There's already been one maybe significant leak that went to Richard Dolan. Expect more. And we're just waiting for a situation that is conducive to holding hearings. And history has thrown us another curveball. We're in the middle of a massive pandemic. And in the middle of that, we're also trying to get major bills passed. And that's not easy.
The infrastructure bill where they're going to totally nuke Bitcoin.
And the Voting
not
Rights
stoked
Act
about that.
and so
Not
forth.
stoked
So
about that.
these are not trivial bills.
Okay, so with that understanding, then, do you think that the people have a right to know what's going on? I mean, you've been an advocate for disclosure for over 24 years, so of course you're a proponent of that people have the right to know what's going on in the skies above us. Now, what about the fact that the government has definitely, if they know anything at all, they've known it for decades. So why now? Why does now mean the time that they finally trust us with this information that they've known for a long time?
All right, well, I'm 74. Okay, in a few years, I'm probably going to get sick and die. All right, and I'm probably asking, why now? Why now? You know, it's because I'm 74 and soon to be 79 and 80 and 81, and after many years, my ability to maintain fully function starts to erode. My immune system starts to decay, and I can't keep up with all the ills that air human flesh. Same thing with the truth embargo. It is also 75 years old, and it's worn out. It's tired. It's been attacked. It's got wounds. It has open sores. And so the reason now is that it's finally just kind of run its course, and it's now vulnerable to the kinds of pressures that have been out there on it for many years. And so it's going to expire. That's the simple way to answer that question. The more complicated way is to address the emergence of the To the Stars Academy, the New York Times articles, the change in media coverage, sea change in media coverage, the coming on board of a whole number of agencies and people that have decided, yeah, it's time. All of that has essentially created a critical mass. And so now we're just waiting for the damn critical mass to explode, giving us disclosure. That's the second, more complicated answer.
Okay. You happy with that answer, Brando?
Is that working for you, Brandon?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I was just curious about your opinion on it. And yeah, no, you said it. That works. I'm on the other side of all of this, of course, and we know this. We had a conversation on my show. Thank you so much for coming on. And I just look at the world completely differently.
Wait. Tell me about your other side.
Let's hear it. I want to hear
I
it
want to
too.
hear it. What's the other side
So,
of this? I'm dying to know.
I probably agree with about 100% of it, but go.
So I think it's a control mechanism. I think if nothing else, they are only rolling this out because they need it to hide something else. I mean, perhaps like the election being overturned here in a few weeks or something like that. I mean, these things are usually smokescreens or distractions. People from a grassroots level have known what this is for a very, very long time. And that's why we have the kind of research that we do, not from our government telling us what it is. I think they know exactly what it is. I think they will use it for their benefit to institute some sort of new world order. You hear this being talked about a lot. You see with this Great Reset, Fourth Industrial Revolution, stuff like that. There's some deep rabbit holes that I've definitely gone to that have put some pieces together for me, evidentiary, and you can see this stuff. And it's just kind of changed the way that I look at all of these things. It's a playbook, and it's a playbook ran by mobsters because that's what our government is. It's organized crime.
That's not the other side. That's another interpretation of the same thing. All right.
Well, but what where we differ is the motives in which we think that this is being carried out. Like, you think it's an altruistic stair step. It's got to come out this way because that's the way it's got to be done because we're following rules. Congress can't, whatever. But what I think is that it's only being used as a manipulation tool to institute more control. You look at things like Project Bluebeam, which is like one of my favorite things, and it's been coming up a lot lately, especially now that the conversation about disclosure has gotten a lot more serious. And it seems like something like that is more likely in my mind, as well as this thing that you keep talking about that we weren't going to talk about. I'm the complete opposite about it. Same thing. I think it's being completely rolled out to just retain more control, man, and take over. That's it.
Well, you're candid and frank with your opinions, and that's good. But let's talk about disclosure. I was talking about the process. I wasn't talking about the motives. I wasn't talking about the motives. The motives of the DOD are beyond my comprehension, though I can guess. The motives of the Congress. Well, there's 535 members of Congress, 70 members of those committees. Every one of them has a slightly different motive. So I'm not going there. You're welcome to go there, and it may be these motives are exactly as you say. My job is to get disclosure, not to somehow shape the motives of multiple agencies and members of Congress to fit some mold. Disclosure. If it comes, it comes, and that's a good thing. Then we may have to deal with the motives behind some of the players, but at least we'll be doing that in the post-disclosure world, as opposed to running around in the dark, bumping into the lawn chair furniture.
So let me ask you this, and this is probably the most honest question I'll ever ask anybody.
Really? Okay.
Why do you? Okay, that's a two-parter. What do you think? Do you think that there are extraterrestrials or other types of entities that are controlling craft intelligently that are visiting the Earth and possibly have been for a very, very long time?
Absolutely, it's certainty.
Okay, cool. So why do you feel it's important for somebody else to tell you that that's accurate? Like, you know that, so why do we have to have the government tell us? Here's my point on this, is I think that if people are smart enough to figure this out, those are the people that are supposed to know that it exists. The people that aren't, just aren't. They don't see it. They don't see what's there. It's just we live in a dichotomy, man. Some people want to know how the magician does the trick. Some people are just happy with it and don't want to know what's behind the curtain, you know? I think that may be it. And I don't think that it takes the U.S. government to tell us what we already know about the phenomena. So I think that this push for disclosure, again, might just be another mechanism of distraction or control. They're like, yeah, look over here. You're going to get disclosure. And then, you know, look over here.
You got to distinguish between the personal level of this and the institutional level. All right. For instance, I had personal opinions about certain wars that we've had. All right. We should be in that one, or we shouldn't be in this one, or what have you. Others had personal opinions.
I bet we share that.
But those personal opinions is not what made the decision about whether we go to war or don't go to war. That decision is made by the United States Congress. All right. And then, of course, the war itself is carried out by the United States military. So in other words, what the government does has significant impact on institutions at minimal, and eventually on human beings. Okay, let me give you a simple example. Because the government, let me another analogy. Let's say that the United States government says, no, we're not going to go to war in Vietnam. But there's a lot of people out there that think we ought to go to war in Vietnam. And so they decide, okay, we're going to form some militias, we're going to get together, we're going to hire a boat, we're going to sail over there and wage war. No, they're not. That's not going to happen. So what the government does and says about war has a very significant impact on whether there's a war or not our opinions. Same thing with the food embargo.
Let me just, I'm going to pop in here.
I'm just going to slide one layer on top of there, Brandon, and just say this one thing. If they don't go to war in Vietnam, then Lockheed and Rand and all these corporations are going to be like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
We were expecting to make a lot of money, okay? And that's not fair. We've got families that we need to rise up and take over the rest of the planet. And you're just going to rain in on our parade and not have the Gulf of Tonkin event happen now? Look, there's fake submarines out there that are sinking our ships. And we need you to report that to the public right now.
Like in World War II when they had the inflatable tanks. But my point on this was that do Damn it, I lost my point, Darcy. It was right in
Well,
there.
I didn't
Okay.
finish. I
No,
didn't finish
here it
my
is.
point.
Here it is.
I
Hang
didn't
on.
finish my point.
I know, but to the point that you were saying, the example that you used is a psyop by the government. The
What?
Gulf of Tonkin never happened, and the government, or they faked it to get everybody into the Vietnam War. So the example of the thing that you were trying to disprove this idea on actually has the idea wrapped up into it. It's
No.
beautiful. I love it.
Missing,
I just wanted
you're
to point
missing
out the
that.
execution.
You're missing the point. What I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to get into the granular history of the Vietnam War. I'm simply going to say I could have been pick another war. I don't care anyway.
No, the one you picked was
Government
perfect.
decides whether we go to war or not a bunch of people that think we ought to go. And because the government has not acknowledged the truth of the ET issue, institutionally, that's had huge consequences. It's prevented civilian research and public civilian research. It's not taught. The issue is not taught in any colleges, and universities. All right. It affects the press coverage. All right. It has impacts across the board. And so you might say, well, I already know there's an ET presence. Therefore, why do I need the president to tell me? Because until the president confirms it, not just to you personally, but to the country, which includes a whole bunch of people that don't know there's an ET presence, it's not going to be treated properly. It's not going to be taught. It's not going to be researched in the open area. And so the consequences of disclosure are quite profound. So I'm seeking disclosure, not because I need that confirmation, but because it is the right thing to do with respect to the institutional process of running the United States.
Yeah, it's horseshit. The institutional process of the United States, and especially in science, this is a pseudoscience at best. There is actual evidence out here, and no scientist can put their name to it because they won't get funding or their tenure will get pulled. It's not recognized as a science.
Why do
This
you
is
think
not
that
an
is?
open study.
Look at
Well,
Why
what's
do you
happening
think
to Avi
scientists are
Loeb.
reluctant
Look
to
what
research?
happened to Avi Loeb. Look what happened to Dr. Johnny Mack, your friend who got you into this.
take your
He
pick.
was being chased with, torches and forks by his own administration in Harvard.
So scientists are just like politicians. They can be bought. So just like what's going on right now that we disagree with, but we're not going to keep talking about, that's the same thing that's going on here. And then also you have this in the scientific study of the physics of anything like this. You know that they're doing it backdoors, but they won't let the mainstream science in on it. They will parcel the idea or the allegedly, right, from the Roswell crash. That's where we got fiber optics. That's where we got a few other technologies. So these kind of things, the microchip, I believe, the motherboard, and these kind of things were peppered out to benefit humanity, but in small little pieces leaked from think tanks is the conspiracy. That's just the idea. So this is the thing, right? And I think honestly, we're never going to get that technology to benefit humanity because you can't meter it. That's the problem. Tesla had this shit 100 years ago.
Never is a long
Can't
time.
meter it.
Never
So just like what they talk about with that 0-point energy thing, that's what we really want. That's what us in the UFO community wants. That's not what your US government wants. And we know that. The lobbyists are there, man. That's what's controlling this country. It's
So
an
are you saying that there's nobody inside within working in our agencies and military services, nobody that feels that the people should know more about this or have a right to know?
I don't think they care. No, I don't think they care about us at all.
Nobody cares. Nobody.
Well, no, there might be a couple of people, but they're not going to talk. There's families have been threatened. People end up getting suicided just for pointing out actual facts with actual documents. So if they come out and say stuff like that, they're on the chopping block. It's possible.
That scenario is probably most possible when it comes to something that's going to provide energy at a cheaper cost than fossil fuels.
Or
I
free
think
completely.
Yeah, free. Basically, the free energy, if you believe it. But I think the one thing that's most important to point out here, just from my perspective, and I have a lowly perspective as a, independent researcher, goofball filmmaker.
Dope ass filmmaker.
Gracias. Basically, if you look at To the Stars Academy, right, which you do tend to trumpet a bit more than others, Steve. Their whole goal, Kit Green, Hal Puthoff, Christopher Mellon, was to put this UFO subject front and center, and they asked for $2 million in funding, and one of their missions was to eventually make exotic technologies that are not in the black, but in the white, in the actual public eye, that demonstrate the same sort of capabilities that these UFOs demonstrate. And the moment I heard that that was part of their mission, I was just dumbfounded as to how they expect to actually pull that off, because you're talking about changing the energy paradigm. You're talking about basically like destroying fossil fuel industry. If you say, okay, we have this craft now that does what all these UFOs are doing, that are not ours, flying around the world. Like, do you actually think they were able to going to pull that off?
If you're asking, let me put it this way. Just because a new company, public benefit company, puts something in their mission statement doesn't mean that that's their mission, right? You're going to put a company out there, you want to raise some money because you've got to pay people, you've got to have money to function, right? You can't just go out there and volunteer and do what they do, anything really without funds. So they raise funds. They didn't raise that much. They expected to raise a lot more, but say they raised 25 million, it wouldn't matter. They have a mission statement there that's interesting, and over a long enough period of time, who knows, they might go there. I didn't buy it initially, because I still don't, because many of these people know that the government's already working on those technologies, and so if they were to spend a ton of money trying to do this, the government already did it probably 40 years ago. That doesn't make any sense. And so I invite a different interpretation. They have a mission statement, get people involved, raise some money, but that's not the reason they exist. That's not the reason that they emerged. The reason they emerged is to end the truth embargo. And what they have done since has, well, virtually everything they have done since they launched, most everything, has been in service to ending the truth embargo. A little research stuff, a little a cooperative research agreement with the Army, no big deal. It has all been about ending the truth embargo. And in order to do that, you need congressional hearings. So not surprising, there's been a great deal of activity regarding Congress. Recently, Lou Elizondo said, we need hearings. So, yeah, look, is it bother you that things are not exactly as they're portrayed? I can understand that, but also understand that for a group that formerly worked their entire career with the military intelligence complex to come out and try to move this ball forward, the idea that they can just step forward and say something and it's going to happen, no. They have to have a strategy, and that strategy has to be executed within the real world. And so they have had to limit what they could say. They have had to misrepresent things a little bit. I understand that. But that often happens when it comes to getting government policy changed. And so they've done a pretty good job, given things went terribly wrong. They got the wrong president, and about the time that things might have started to get a little bit more sane, they got a pandemic. And so it's turned into a nightmare for them. They did not do this expecting that they were going to have to hang out to dry for 4 years. They were hoping this thing would be a slam dunk by, I don't know, March of 2017. And so because they're not making money, it hasn't helped them get any business or contracts. It's probably cut off anything they could do. They have suffered. Though they had retirement money, they're okay. This has been a nightmare for them. And most people don't get that. They think this was the plan. A launch in 2017, put some articles in, and then take flack for 3 more years until there was a change of administration. No, that wasn't the plan. So they're doing the best they can with what history has delivered up, and they've managed to get to the point where the DOD has basically thrown in the towel and said, okay, look, this is going to be over. What do you want? Okay, we'll give you this, but we're not going to act out of line. And there's people coming on board: Woolsey, Brennan, Radcliffe,
Rubio.
NASA.
Yeah, I know.
So
NASA apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like, the only disagreement that probably Brennan and I have with you is that
really only one.
Well, we're just saying that this version of disclosure is a planned disclosure. It's not like the DOD's like, fine, we give up. It's like, okay, let's let them have it the way we want them to have it.
Of course.
And that's going to push our agenda.
That's right. I would add to that for nefarious reasons. Yes.
Well, that gets into motives. Look,
a lot of evidence pointing towards it.
Yeah, the government. You don't think that the process of ending the truth embargo was going to be, I don't know, just spitballed? Of course, it's going to be planned. It's going to be organized. Hell, you'd be amazed at how much organization goes into just giving the State of the Union address. And so
Yeah.
I'm not shocked that they're planning anything. I'm not shocked that they're conducting in a way that will minimize negative pushback to the government, or that will show them in a better light. That's human nature. I don't have a problem with that. So I'm happy. Now, when it gets to what is their motives, are they nefarious or not nefarious? I just don't know, and I'm not in a position to assess it really. I'm interested in. I can assess the disclosure process, and the goal is to get disclosure. Look, let's take the civil rights movement. One could make the case that the only reason that the government passed the Civil Rights Act was not to end segregation in the South. It was a much more nefarious agenda because it would get more people of color into the workforce, and they would generate more taxes, and then they could control them more because the IRS could, whatever. Or it could be that they felt it was the right thing. Again, until I get powerful evidence in terms of projecting the motive behind the actions of the DOD, I will assume that they're just trying to do the right thing in the most favorable way.
It's probably both. It's probably both in that case, in that scenario. You know,
But-
it's a win-win for both the nefarious dudes and the activists, the human rights dudes.
And to that point, let's talk about motive. So why would you think aliens would contact humanity? Do you think that it's to stop our aggressive expansion into the stars? Steve Bassett?
I think ETs have been engaging us for as long back in history as you want to go. Before humans, Homo sapiens sapiens emerged, the planet was kind of boring, frankly. There was still plenty of life here. Millions of species have come and gone during the evolution of life on this planet. So we have been a petri dish for life of unmanageable types and kinds. And guess what? We have scientists that are extremely interested in all life on this planet, how it evolved, how it develops, how it changes. The fact that other species could have great interest in life on other planets, which would be really cool, is hardly shocking. So I think they've been engaging for a long time.
Follow-up question.
We're cutting. Wait. We're cutting now. We're segueing to the film, The Day the Earth Stood Still. You just saw a little clip of that when the saucer lands.
It's a great clip.
This is another little clip. This is just how it would be televised. So we're going to discuss, in terms of this film and its hypothesis of why we might be getting contact over the years. And so let's watch this little clip.
Do not know where it came from. The ship is now resting exactly where it landed 2 hours ago, and so far there is no sign of life from inside it. Troops have been rushed across the Potomac River from Fort Myer and have thrown a cordon around the ship. They are supported by tanks, artillery, and machine guns. Behind the police lines, there's a huge crowd of curiosity seekers.
There must be security for all, or no one is secure. This does not mean giving up any freedom, except the freedom to act irresponsibly. Your ancestors knew this when they made laws to govern themselves and hired policemen to enforce them.
Now, that's Klaatu, 1951. A year later, we do end up having the famous UFO flying over the Capitol building. It's interesting that this movie actually came out before that. But
predictive programming.
There you go. Klaatu has a little speech at the end of the film, and he says, look, I had my little soiree with you guys. I got to know what you were about. I prevented, your world's destruction. But you guys are a threat to this sort of galactic federation that we've created in space. And this council is in charge of monitoring intelligent races that are ready to go into space. And we can't allow you to bring your aggressions with you because you're using nuclear weapons. Now, the whole nuclear weapon theme to UFOs and why we started seeing them en masse has been prevalent in ufology forever. It's been prevalent since 1947 when we began testing the bombs, and you know, it continues today. Apparently, that is the running theme in ufology. It's probably on the Netflix documentary said a couple
It
times,
is.
and I didn't even have to watch it. So
Right.
tell me, do you think that Klaatu is, you know, written right out of Donald Kehoe's book, and a character trying to exemplify the theory as to why they have come?
The films, David, Earth Stood Still, are in some ways the two most significant films ever done on this subject. And if you own an original copy, one of the originals of these films, save it, because one day it's going to be worth millions of dollars. And here's why. It turns out both films are right. Whether they had any inside information, I don't know. I don't care. Both films nailed it cold. The first film was about the fact that our nuclear weapons raised a significant problem for extraterrestrials, and therefore and us, right? And therefore, Klaatu had to come down and discuss this with us. The second film was about the impact of massive impact of humans on the Earth, on the species, on the biosphere. All right. Okay. Well, guess what? I
We're
believe that
watching a
is
little clip here, actually,
the
for
second one. Yeah.
context.
Good old Keanu. He's pretty good in that role, I thought. He's great at underplaying a role. He's fantastic at that. And then, of course, there's Connolly. Oh, I love her.
Get off
So
my Kool-Aid, Bassett.
No sound.
That last line he says there, she says to him, "Why have you come to our planet?" And he says, "Your planet?"
Yeah.
And the theme changes in the second one, and it goes, "We're destroying the planet,"
Exactly.
which is a common theme in ufology. You know, many of the crop circle researchers are saying that's one of the messages, and many of the abductees have been saying for years that's one of the messages. We're destroying the planet, and they're worried. And he says to her, "Your planet," because throughout the film after this, he has summoned a different type of robot, and it is a nanobot storm that is literally devouring the planet and ripping it apart like Robot Piranha or something.
Right.
Hell yeah.
And
Great name for a band.
Robot Piranha, yeah. And basically, the plan is at this point to destroy humanity because we're a scourge to the planet and to wildlife and to the ecosystem. We're a scourge to ourselves because we're killing ourselves. And he actually, before they enact this plan to kill everyone and let the animals and stuff survive, he has this meeting with apparently a envoy from his race that was sent to the planet earlier. And of course, they meet at a McDick's or something like that.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, a little product placement. And they have a chat, and he says, "Look, you know, these folks are not worth saving." but he loves mankind, he says after, because he doesn't want to leave the envoy here. But he says, you know, we're destructive, and we're a threat to ourselves and to the planet. And he also says after this little clip that it's sad because we actually know that's our destiny. We know that we're going to destroy the planet.
Possible.
And what do you think, Bassett? Do you think this is just reality written into fiction here, or fiction written into reality?
What I'm saying is that these two films nailed it right in the bullseye. That's exactly what's going on. I don't know if it's luck or whatever. There are two very famous cases that are getting and will get even more attention. One is the Westfall case in Australia, and the other is the Ruwa Zimbabwe aerial school case in Africa. And what is remarkable about these two cases is that a craft landed, ETs were actually out, not for a very long time, happened to be right next to schools. The kids run out, they get very close, and they get a psychic message from them. And the message they get is, one, you're at risk of destroying yourselves with these nuclear weapons, and you're also destroying the planet with your behavior. You're destroying the biosphere. And these cases are very strong and amazing, and they're going to get a lot of attention. Now, we happen to know, those of us that examine the contact history, is that contactees have been getting these messages in their individual encounters with ETs a lot. Nukes and environmental damage. They're given these messages in various ways, telepathically, showing images and what have you. So I was convinced some time ago that's exactly what's going on. So another way to put it is this, and this is how I describe it. Again, this is an assessment. It's a speculation. I can't prove it. It's my assessment. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Somebody's got a better one, I'd love to hear it. Is that one of the reasons they are here is because we built nukes and we use them. And while that can't hurt them, if we develop interstellar drive, we can hurt them. And they are pretty aware of our technology. They're aware of where our tech is going. They have, well, we are pretty aware of where our tech is going. I think they're even more sophisticated. I think they know within probably a decade when we will finally crack open the relativity problem and create the workaround that would allow us to go interstellar. If we do that, we're going to take our nukes with us. It's real simple. It's not complicated. We're going to take the nukes with us, just to be safe. So that can't happen.
Pack the nukes.
We can't have that. That simply cannot happen. If we were in their shoes, if humans were in an interstellar craft, monitoring a planet 20 light years away, and we saw that they developed nukes, they used them on themselves, and then about 100 years later, it looks like they're going to develop interstellar drive. The idea that we would simply fly back to the Earth and say, I hope they don't find out where we are, is not an option. We would intervene. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're intervening, and I think I know where that is going. Secondly, they, I think, have an appreciation and maybe even a grander knowledge of how the galaxy works, how life evolves, how complex it is, and so forth, and have had the chance to develop a certain appreciation for a biosphere that takes billions of years to evolve and develop, even to the point of creating a sentient life that is able to create technology and so forth. And therefore, they have a certain appreciation for our planet and its history. And so the idea that we might destroy the environment, completely undermine our biosphere, for them, I think, would be rather wasteful, right? If not reprehensible.
But why haven't they intervened when we just like whacked every dodo bird, in the Polynesian, like Australia? Why haven't they intervened when
every dodo bird?
Yeah, like why haven't they intervened when we destroyed and killed every black rhino in Africa? Why haven't
Great question.
Why haven't they like flown over to Japan and had a little talking to our folks there that are destroying the dolphin population and killing every whale that they can find north of their country? Why
haven't they just taken every piece of shit pedophile and just launched them out into space where they stand and just done, over, no more problems? There's a lot of reasons.
They call
for
that a pedo rocket.
Yeah. And a couple of the things to that point though, man, is that it's possible that, so what do you think that they told people whenever they abducted them before 1945, before we were dabbling in the atomic weapons? Because arguably they've been here since either the dawn of humanity or long before. That's one of the arguments. There's some evidence to support that. But what do you think that they told people back then? Like, stop cross-fencing, you're putting up too many fences. Were there any dire warnings for humanity before we got into nuclear weapons?
I don't know. The fact is that there's other reasons for contact besides providing messages.
It seems to be a main theme, like what you were talking about. It seemed to be a main theme, all of them, and I agree with you, yeah.
It comes a main theme after 1945. Prior to 1945, It's not a key theme. So if they were if there were contactees prior to 45, then they may not have been getting such messages. But the reason they were contactees, it don't have anything to do with nuclear weapons or environmental destruction. It happens to do with other work they're doing, which has a very strong genetic component. So again, the question is somewhat moot. They were dealing with them before 95 for other reasons. After 45, well, it changes dramatically.
And before, way before that, some people say even the Book of Enoch is some kind of abduction tale.
And they had vitrified glass that they found that was tens of thousands, if not millions of years old over there too, that looked like the result of a nuclear weapon. You know,
to answer your question about dodo birds right away, because I'm pleased that dodo birds got brought into this.
Please, the dodos.
They're concerned about the biosphere, its ability to sustain life, not the dodo bird. Again, over the last million years, 100 million, untold millions of species have come and gone. That's part of the natural process of evolution. What you don't want to have is a collapse of the biosphere that wipes out most or all of the species.
The sixth
but more importantly, we're part of the biosphere now. And we are not just a dodo bird. We are a sentient species that took 4 billion years to evolve. And therefore, by destroying the environment, we're also destroying ourselves, as a nuclear war would as well. And I think they have a certain place in their worldview regarding sentient beings. Meaning, we hate to see them annihilate themselves, because the sentient being is quite an extraordinary thing. Whatever. They're clearly concerned.
That's the argument, though. Why are they that concerned about this sentient being when actually, arguably, we're destroying a lot more species on the planet than ours, and we're destroying ours as well? The planet would be a lot better off without us, is one of the ideas. So if that's the case, and aliens or whatever really does want to see the biosphere continue and not all this horrible shit keep happening, then they would take us out. So this then lends to the idea that they're a threat. Do you think that they're a threat?
I don't think they're a threat. And the answer to your question, they're concerned about both. They're concerned about the biosphere, and they're concerned about the human race. Okay, there's a reason they have probably more concern about us than, I don't know, the spotted toad. You can come up with your own answer to that question, but I think they do. The biosphere and us.
But I mean, but they have no problem with humans destroying an animal's habitat and watching it go extinct. You know what I'm saying? So it seems a little. They seem to be picking and choosing, their battles on what they want to do.
If we were to,
which in turn,
if we were to interpret some possible version of these contact interventions, it could be just simply they're trying to send a message, and it's up to us to actually take action, because they're not going to save us. Like
the Star Trek thing, you can't intervene.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, unless you're trying to fly to our planet with nuclear bombs on board, that's
another thing. So, but what if
that's war?
All of this, though, is predicated on the idea that they are from other star systems and that they have to linearly traverse or have a wormhole to travel from point A to point B. What another argument, though, for that is a few, man. There's a myriad, there's a buffet of ideas out there that might speak to this idea on why specifically they want to talk to us about nuclear weapons in the biosphere and taking care of the planet. And one of those is that, nuclear weapons, they say, on an atomic level, affect other dimensions. Now, science has already talked about up to 11 possible dimensions. Some people argue on the number, but their validity is there. So maybe it's interrupting something on their dimension, and they're dimensional beings, meaning that they blink in and out as they want rather than traverse a distance in space. But that wouldn't do anything for the idea that they don't want us traveling to the stars, so therefore they're intervening. But if they were crypto-terrestrials, meaning inside the Earth, which is another possibility, or if they were interdimensional beings, which on an atomic level, these specific weapons do something, then they would want to see that stopped. So these are just other possibilities. I mean, and I like this. We just discussed the ideas. All of it's valid, or the Earth is flat It's an infinite plane. It goes on forever.
All right,
And
we're gonna
aliens are
have to
just
stop the
things coming over
conversation
from another
there.
part
All
of.
right. No, not on this podcast. We're not
We're talking about
flat
everything
Earth.
else. We're talking about
No
possibilities here. That's all we're
way.
talking about. And
No
if you
way.
set off a nuke on a flat plane, maybe it does affect things around us. It's just possible. That's all I'm saying.
All right, flat Earth projection.
Every
Let's talk.
scientist that who has a career has to make a decision about what areas they're going to engage.
Yeah.
What are they going to research? All right. And yeah, almost any field you want to pick, there's a buffet of things that they could invest their life into.
Yeah.
If they pick one that has a 1 in 500,000 chance of being true, then they may end up wasting their life. And so you have to make those calls. I have no problem with star-to-star travel. I'm not concerned about these other hypotheses. I think the odds are minuscule. In terms of the atomic weapon, explosions affecting them, every second, the equivalent of 1 million or more hydrogen bombs goes off in our sun. So if nuclear explosions were to create a problem, then our sun would be a far bigger problem than us. We're nothing. So
If our sun is what they're telling us it is.
What now?
If our sun is what they're telling us it is. Some
Yeah.
scientists argue against nuclear fusion. Now, another thing, though, that I did want to talk to you about is the way that this disclosure is going to roll out. Again, I think that, we're going to probably cap the episode here in a couple minutes, just simply because we want to take a quick pee break and go to a part 2. So stick around for part 2, guys, for sure. Mr. Bassett, what are your final thoughts on the day the Earth stood still and its implications for what we can kind of, is it a template for disclosure? Do you think that that's one of the more likely scenarios?
Well, not disclosure, but rather it is
a reveal arrival. They would disclose to us that they're here.
I think that
Contact.
Again, they can disclose to us anytime they want to, but they haven't. We're going to disclose it to ourselves. But I think that the day that Earth stood still, the 2 films actually have correctly portrayed two actual reasons why the ETs are here and have been quite active since 45. Whether they got lucky or whether it's just a common sense logical interpretation, which I happen to think it is. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the correct. Actually, most of the time, the simplest explanation is the correct.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, and so those 2 films, in that sense, are going to be revered over time for getting it right. Great. That's fine. So that's why I'm glad we brought these films up. That, I believe, is the core issue. And disclosure will result in us confirming that. And I expect certain things to happen post-disclosure, which will confirm these 2 fundamental motivations for the ET engagement.
Do you think we'll get altruistic motivations from them? Can we trust what they say?
Hey, you know how you trust people? You trust them by their actions. So if their actions are good, then you can trust them. If it's not, then you can't trust them. And so we just don't know yet. And so we'll wait and see. We'll find out.
There are examples and stories of people being married for 40 years and then one of them loses their mind one day and kills the other one.
Yeah, sure.
And this may be another thing, right? This is just another possibility that they've been, because that's one of the argument about them being hostile or, them being a threat. And I agree with you on this. I don't necessarily feel that they are. I get that vibe as well. But it seems that maybe they've just been playing the long game and they've been, kind of neutralizing our fears about them. And then all of a sudden one day, boom, they just flip the switch and that's it for humanity. I mean, it's possible. I like you though, want to think the other way. I'm optimistic.
There's nothing we can do about that.
Right. Absolutely. And not like we could.
I'm more concerned about a new species turning up that has had no engagement with us at all, simply turning up out of nowhere with malicious intent. That is certainly possible.
Bird people.
But interestingly enough, the number one thing to protect us about that circumstances would be the power of, say, 4 or 5 other species acting collectively to protect us against this rogue Borg-like intrusion. In other words, we can't defend ourselves against any interstellar group, but we could if we're in alliance with other interstellar groups, which may be one good reason why they've been pushing the disclosure issue as well. For instance, we haven't got the ability to redirect a, say, massive mountain-sized asteroid. We can't do it. So if one actually turns up and starts heading for us, it's game over. They do have the ability to redirect such an asteroid, and probably they would. So but they might not. I don't know. But the thing is that I'm just trying to point out that our future existence is very much connected to the actions of extraterrestrials. And then the question comes down to what does our relationship need to be to maximize that degree of protection? And so that's another reason for disclosure, one of many, many, many. There you go. Hi guys. How you doing?
Hey, yeah, there's no bird people on here, but do you think any of these guys here are going to be saving our asses from an asteroid the size of a mountain?
Only takes one. You have 5 species, 5 different civilizations engaging us. 4 could say, I don't care. It only takes one to say it would be a waste to see most of life wiped out on this planet by what amounts to an act of God.
Well, maybe it's the bird people getting revenge on humanity for the dodo.
There you go. There you go.
So on that note,
I see. I found some bird people here. Look at the little eagle boys on the bottom left.
Twisted.
Bottom left. Two bottom left. Yeah. All right. Anyways, so that's
cool.
The first episode.
So yeah, we'll pick it up. We'll pick it up in part 2. We still haven't talked about the arrival. I've got a lot of things to say, and we're going to tie something in. I've got a big tie-in for all of this stuff and the UFO movement community, all of it as a whole. So make sure y'all check out part 2. You can check us out at media@occultjourneys.com is the email. Check us out there. And YouTube, go over there, like, subscribe, and pass it around. Stevie B, we'll see you for the next one. Darcy, thank you, brother. Great job.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Brando.